Hi YouTube, Francis here. Thank you for coming back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I bid thee welcome. There is a subscribe button and a bell below if you want to be notified as to when I upload more content, which I do on a rather ad hoc basis. And I am finally coming to you from Ghana country. I acknowledge the Ghana people of the Adelaide Plains as being the traditional custodians of this land. So it's been a while because I have been traveling. I've been in Egypt for nearly 3 weeks. It's just under 3 weeks. So it was a bit of an adventure. All over the place. It's been a trip that's been largely in the making for some 30 years. And there were 2 tours involved, which even took me out into the desert. And a sandstorm experience, which was interesting. And while I am in the process of processing and integrating and collecting my thoughts, no doubt something will emerge from this trip. But I thought I might just jump on board because for the most part of this month, which has been rather interesting, should I say, without overusing that word, astrologically, energetically, I just wanted to probably touch base, and though I've talked about it briefly in an earlier video, I think the last video, astrological video that I did, I just thought I want to do a bit of a recap, especially if you are feeling, excuse me, while I'm trying to get my voice back, that things are a little bit out of control and haywire at the moment, and that could be because a number of things have happened or are happening or in the process of happening that may or may not be affecting you, especially on a more energetic level. Now, as I keep saying, when I do these astrological updates, I'm not an astrologer. I don't pretend to be an astrologer. I just have a strong interest in astrology, and I will be linking below the astrologers whose information I have, or websites I have looked at to gather this information together, and I do strongly recommend that you support their channels. So March 2023. Now, this month has probably been and probably will be one of the largest energetic months for the year, especially from an astrological perspective. And most of this energy tends to have been focused around change and rebirth. It's the most important thing when we feel our life is falling to bits. This is because change is happening and something new will be rebirthed once we learn to let go. So right from the beginning, during the first 2 weeks of this month, we had Venus, we had Jupiter, and we had Chiron, all interacting with each other, all being conjunct right next door to each other between 11 and 14 degrees of Aries. Now, Aries is, as you are probably fully aware, the first sign of the astrological wheel, or the zodiacal wheel, so it's right at the beginning of things, especially in the Northern Hemisphere. It also corresponds with spring, even though that doesn't apply here in the Southern Hemisphere. But it's all about beginnings. So we have Venus, the planet usually associated with love, but also our values. Jupiter, which is a very expansive planet, and Chiron, which is the wounded healer, especially things that have been suppressed or pain from the past, which are now influencing our actions, all being activated. As I said, Jupiter is the great maleficent. It expands everything it touches. So this all led to a combination energy for initiation in order to move ahead, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. And what could be a little bit struggling is if you are the type of person that you need to know the answers to everything, because often, especially at this particular point in time, the conscious mind is not actually aware, or the awareness has not been brought into your conscious mind as to why we need to let things go. So it is a lot about surrender, have faith, especially in relation to the greater plans or the greater scheme of things, and go with the flow, which can be a little bit difficult when you feel that your existence, as you are familiar with, is falling apart. Pointers to find out any direction that you could be heading into can be found if you have planets, say, 11 to 14 degrees of Aries. Look to where these points are in your chart. Look to what house this is, because that can also indicate the new directions which are coming into your life. Then on the 7th of March, we had Saturn entering Pisces, and Saturn will remain there basically until early 2025. We had the full moon, the first full moon of the year, occurring just after the equinox on the 20th of March, and it had a sextile with Pluto. And then happy birthday Aries, Pluto, the lord of the underworld of death, moved into Aquarius on the 23rd, and it will be ebbing and flowing between Aquarius and where it has been in Capricorn a couple of times for over the next few years before it finally surrenders to the Aquarius energies. So that's just a little bit of a recap as to what has happened energetically. It can be very chaotic at the moment because these are actually, or according to astrologers, big shifts happening for the collective as a whole. And it's almost as if something is opening up for us. These strong energies are wanting us, or wanting to carry us forward over the next 20 years. So it's beginning to, say, all the ducks are beginning to line up in a row, especially if we're not used to jumping into the unknown and rushing ahead where angels fear to tread in true Aries fashion. As I said earlier, maybe not everything has manifested into our conscious awareness at the moment, so we are in this predicament of surrender and having faith or courage. It's another sign of Aries, having this courage to just forge ahead regardless. Aries is also a pioneer. It's known for its ferociousness or fierceness, to charge ahead where angels fear to tread. Aries also rules the mind, so it is important at this particular point in time while things are in this change, in this flux, not to overthink things, to learn to trust your body, learn to move drop out of your head into your body, into your feelings, listen to your gut instincts, as opposed to being caught up with all this ego, head conscious, and the intellect. It's also important to step into the moment, to get a feel as to what it means, especially in your body, when you, on a different level, away from the head, do or see or sense something, and it's a no. How does it feel? Does your body tense up? Do you have sort of pulsations or heat spots or cold spots? Likewise, when you're on a deeper level, body is saying yes to you. Again, how does that feel to you? So really spend some time getting back in touch with your body, and that will actually help you as you move through these energies. Also give yourself time if you have to make an answer or make a decision. People would want things done instantly in this world. Ask for time and then give yourself permission to wait so you have a little bit more clarity around the situation. As I said, it's important to come back to the body, to remember the body, especially as not only is Aries all about the head, as I've just mentioned, but with Pluto moving into Aquarius, this can also highlight something negative or slightly shady in the realm of artificial intelligence and AI. This was only recently mentioned how it's forging ahead almost uncontrollable at the moment, and people are wanting the progress of technology, especially in AI, to be reined in a little bit, because the whole scheme or the consequences, the flow and effect, has not been properly analysed or worked out in these areas. Things like that, the side effects, the consequences, flow and effects often aren't. However, there's sort of like an indication being, or sort of like a red flag being waved, especially as some forms of this artificial intelligence, unless in my mind, is attempting to make us less and less human. And that's quite interesting, and I'll talk about that later. It's almost like being human, the characteristics which uniquely make us human. We are being encouraged, especially with AI or the use of AI, not to be as humanistic as we are naturally. Naturally, it's not a complete sentence, but I hope you understand what I'm sort of talking about. It's like our responsibilities, our feelings, our emotions, our thought patterns are all beginning to be manipulated in a way which saves us time, makes it easier for us, but also the flip side of that is that there's a danger of it making us less and less human. Just this week we have had Mercury being conjunct, where did that word come from? Conjunct with Chiron. Chiron's the wounded healer, of course, I've mentioned it a number of times. And this, with Mercury, the planet of communication, this is actually asking us to explore the wounds relating to taking on things that we don't want to do, and the realization that maybe we actually are doing this in order to validate or receive validation externally by other people, as opposed to relying on our own sense of judgment, sense of self-worth, self-esteem, our own self-confidence. Again, we're handing over our power, and you are seeing this more, I'm seeing this especially more and more on social media, where people want to do something or have done something that all of a sudden, hey, what's your opinion on this? It's like, it is good to get feedback, but sometimes we need to just trust ourselves as opposed to seeking validation and the opinion of others, especially on social media, where majority of people do not know us, really have no vested interest in us, yet we are asking, while I take a sip of tea. And have a coffee fit. This is what happens when you get caught in a sandstorm. You got half the Sahara Desert in your lungs. Okay. You're seeking validation from people who really don't have a vested interest in us, which, at least in my skeptic mind, raised a lot of questions in that process as well. Just looking at my notes here, again, there's a lot of influences or sort of subtle messages, reminders to tap back into our body. So in relation to Chiron, these wounds, or identifying these wounds, is important, and often it is asking ourselves the hard questions as to why don't we think we are worthy enough to validate our own actions? Why do we keep looking for external validation? What ways, or what can be done to actually encourage us to return to this belief in the self, our own self? get internal validation, listening to our body reactions, as I mentioned right at the beginning, as opposed to the reactions of other people. Then a few days ago, Mars was conjunct with the asteroid Hecate, which again is opening up a new path that can actually take us away from the current one that we're walking on, moving into the unknown. So there is a lot of energies at the moment really propelling us into taking that chance, taking that first step into the unknown, so to speak. There are a few other things happening, especially in relation to next week. There's a full moon, which is going to be in Libra. I'm actually going to do a separate video in relation to that because we're up to 16 minutes already, and this was only just going to be an energy sort of cap up or monthly update recap as to what has happened energetically. So I'm just going to end. That's what I was wanting to do. I'm actually just draw a card. This is from Deep, Dark and Dangerous, Oracle of Stacey DeMalco. Card that's just jumped out is Shadow. So that's rather interesting because, yeah, shadow work seems to be a big thing. And also sort of ties in a little bit with Chiron in that this is the internal. This is like diving deep into us, trusting us. And as I mentioned, when working with Chiron, asking ourselves, why don't we trust ourselves? Now, this could be actually something in our shadow as well. So could be a good time to actually sit with the shadow. Just sit with ourselves, ask these questions, meditate, because in meditation, you actually open yourself up to communion with the divine, with this God, goddess, ancestors, spirit guides, holy guardian angel, or your own higher consciousness. You actually open yourself to receive that guidance in, or you open yourself, you're in a relaxed position, an open position where you can tap into your body again. And as I mentioned right at the beginning, reconnect with what your body feels like or senses like when it means yes, and what it feels like and senses like when it means no. So just show you the card again. This is Shadow that just jumped out. And yeah, I will see you on the flip side. I hope you are well. Blessings.